We are continuing on our series of the Beatitudes, and we are on number what? It's more than one. Six. Six, not five, not seven, but six. Okay? So we're going to kind of read the Beatitudes and go through this. And also, the way the Beatitudes are set up, that this is in succession, right? So the one that we're dealing with today, which is being pure in heart, you're not going to be able to be pure in heart unless you're able to do the first, second, third, and then help process of doing the fourth, and then you start to get the product of what we've sowed in number 4, 5, and 6, and then 7 and 8. Okay, so this sermon may go, well, that's nice. How do I get there? Well, a good thing to do is we have a website, right? We're in the 80s now. So we have a website, and on our website is all of the list of our sermons that we've done for a long time. And so if you missed one, or if you want to recapture what all are, go back and do that. You do yourself a great service to understand what we're doing. And it's real simple. The sermon title is named Beatitude number 1. Beatitude number 2. Okay, we got that, right? And so we've made it simple for you. You think, well, I missed the third Beatitude. Just go back and recapture that, and so you can kind of catch up into speed. Because what we're trying to do really is try to mature in our faith and grow in our faith, so we're not just stuck at the same place we were when we were baptized at age 12. Okay? And so we need to kind of go through a process of doing that. This is our Beatitude number 6, and so we're going to read these together. So I'm going to ask you to stand, get the blood down to your toes. Let us read this together. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Be seated, unless you want to stand for the sermon. As I have shared so many times, these Beatitudes have kind of opened up a whole different understanding of faith to me, and even the way in which I am asked to live out my faith. And so I hope it does the same for you. And I try to do different types of analogies throughout these sermons to maybe help put things in perspective. And so I hope you capture those. If you missed it, please go back on the website and listen to the series that we're doing. Today is what it means to be pure in heart. And I think I understand this through a mini-series that Dan Simmons always makes me watch shows that he finds to be kind of ridiculous. And that's not one of them. But he finds to be pretty, something I might like. And so there's one I watched. It was a pilot for a series on TV called Life. And if you don't know anything about it, it's about a police officer who was framed by the very people he worked for a murder that he did not commit, obviously. And so he was sentenced to life in prison. 17 years in prison, they finally realized that he was falsely accused and released. His response was to go back to the place that framed him and work again as a detective, for the simple reason that he loved his job. He loved what he was doing. And all that time he spent gave him a completely different perspective of life on the inside, of how criminals think and what they do and who they are as people. And so he wanted to get back into the system and be the change that he thought that needed to happen when all this took place. The first episode was pretty interesting because he and his partner went to a prison to interview a prisoner there. And he was a big, burly, tough guy, as they all are in the movies, right? They never have the weak little guys. So always these tough, burly guys with no hair and tattoos all over the place. Pretty tough looking. This partner started just kind of interrogating him a little bit. And they were getting nowhere. It was just a fiasco. Just hate. And suddenly he just looked, he was standing right there watching, he just looked right at him and said, "You hate cops, don't you?" Well, he looked at him, a mean look, and said, "Yeah, I do." The detective said, "So do I." It wasn't what the prisoner expected. And at that point, all of a sudden, they had something in common, right? His guard was down, and then they began to have a conversation. But the detective wasn't just trying to get information from him. He was being incredibly honest because his experience with cops landed him in prison for 17 years because he saw his own people not doing what they were called to do or were not committing themselves to doing what they said they would do themselves. That little exchange that was taking place in this prison just kind of lit a fire under me. Because it not only described kind of a hate relationship that criminals have with cops in this movie, but it also kind of is pretty accurate to how non-Christians feel about Christians. Because there are not too many Christians, if we want to use that word, who are doing what they're called to do by God. Nor are there too many Christians that are doing what they committed themselves to do when they were baptized. Now I'm going to have to confess, I feel a lot like the detective in that show. I love what I do. I can't imagine doing anything else more than what I am doing and being here with you. I can't expect myself being anywhere else or serving anything. I love the God that I serve. But I also have some pretty strong issues with Christians. Because these issues I see stems from how we have Americanized the word Christian. Has to do more with maybe a club that really doesn't have many commitments. And how we've turned the cross from a symbol of persecution and death and even grace, we've turned it into kind of a fashion statement. Jeans, purses, caps, boots, all with the nice glittery crosses on them, and it just absolutely drives me crazy. You know how expensive it is to be a Christian today? People will spend thousands of dollars to get these types of items for themselves without giving a dime to the church. But what does it say? Look at me. I'm a Christian. And I know this will cause a lot of people to roll their eyes and saying, "Danny, you're taking this way too serious." But it becomes more of a status symbol for popular people. It's almost as if we have to really quit using the word Christian because it's lost its meaning. And it's changed more into a marketing tool in our society. Do you realize that the word Christian was not what people called themselves in the beginning? It's what outsiders used to call them because they chose to live their life so completely different and strange than the rest of society. The word Christian was used to describe a secret society of people having to get together on the Lord's Day to worship without excuses, without fail. It meant risking being persecuted. It meant sharing all of one's money and material and possessions, not 10%, as we try to get people to tithe us, which is even reduced to 3% of people's income, but to share their belongings, their materials with the people of the community, because there were people within their own churches and their own families that were losing their jobs because of their faith. And they wanted to help each other out, not just their own people, but even those outside the church walls in that secret society that the people were not taken care of. And so they shared everything that they had because they loved one another severely. The word sacrifice was a word synonymous with the word Christian. It's just simply to learn how to do without for the sake of others. And to be a Christian required complete devotion. It required undivided allegiance. In other words, very few people wanted to be a Christian because it wasn't popular. And it demanded that everybody that become one make some severe changes in their life. The word Christian has been watered down so much to the point that there's no expectations. There's no allegiances required. In fact, if you have time on weekends, come on by. Put a few bucks in the plate to alleviate what guilt you might have. See if this applies to you in your life about what it meant to be a Christian. The word Christian was referred to one who studied under Christ. Studied under Christ. It was one who chose to follow Christ. Wherever he went and did is where we went and where they did. It was people who were dedicated to grow every single day in their relationship with Christ. Because the goal of their life was to be able to imitate Christ with their words, with their actions, and even deeper, their feelings changed to emulate Christ's feelings for people, for enemies, for those they don't love. Because when it comes down to it, we represent this Christ in the world around us, the entire world. And this is what this sixth beatitude means. Blessed are those who are pure in heart, for they will see God. Think about that. Do you see God? Do you see God? Being pure in heart does not refer to someone who's ritually clean and perfect and without blemishes and innocent and a goody-goody two-shoes. Pure in heart simply refers to one who has this undivided allegiance with God and with God's mission in the world. And the only way that we're going to have a pure heart is to make our allegiance with God. Not our allegiance with our work, not allegiance with our family, not even our children or grandchildren, not allegiance with our addictions, not allegiance with our desire to have fun or to be pampered. But our allegiance is to God, period. Because this is how we see God. This is how we learn how to listen to God. This is how we learn how to respond to God. Because our God desires that we become the perfect employee or employer. Our God desires that we be the perfect spouse or partner or friend or parent or child or grandparent. Our God desires that we use our money in a way that brings life to yourself by bringing life to other people. Our God takes our addictions and puts them behind our purpose for living. Our God redefines the word fun to be meaningful instead. Putting our God first makes life and relationships so much better if we just believe that Jesus is right. We claim to be a Christian nation. You heard that before? You want some fun statistics? These statistics have been out for ever and ever and ever, even before I was born. And they're always pretty accurate, okay? So trust me or not. But here's the deal. Here's some fun stats. These numbers are going down. 80% of Americans are Christians, right? That's gone down, way down. It'll probably go down more because here's the reason it goes down. The more wealth, the less spiritual people become. The less wealth, the higher the spirituality is. That's just the way it works. That's just the way it is. People rely more on God when they have nothing and then rely more on their things when they have everything. Now, 40% of those who claim, of that 80%, claim to go to church at least once or twice a week. That's it, okay? 40%. Then another survey came out a few years ago and said, what's the number one thing that people lie about most on surveys? Going to church. And so they said the more accurate number for that would be 20%. So 20% of the 80% are in church at least once a week. Once a month. We wish once a week. Okay? Another statistic's been around forever and ever is that 90 of that 20%, 90% are not committed to doing things in their life. So only 10% of that 20% are committed to worship daily or weekly, to study weekly of the Scriptures, understanding Scriptures, of finding time on a daily basis, even if it's for a minute or two, just to be with God, allow God to interrupt our day, or to even be a part of a church family. Only about 10% of that 20%. Does that make sense to you? Let's put some numbers to this, okay? Population of the United States of America today, give or take a few babies have been born lately. 317 million people. 80% check the box somewhere along the line that they're Christian. That's 250 million people. 20% of that go to church. That reduces that number to 50 million. 10% of that are those who are trying to get it, trying to understand it, trying to be, as a Beatitude says, trying to be pure in heart, moving to see God, hear God's voice, and go the directions of God. 10%. That number is 5 million, which is a whopping 1.6% of our population in America, the United States of America. Looking at it that way, can we say that we're a Christian nation? Well, by word only, by a box that we check. Are we a nation that's filled with followers of Jesus Christ? Are we a nation that's filled with those who are disciples of Jesus? Are we filled with a nation with those who are pure in heart? Not even close. Not even close. So understand, we're talking about that the word Christian has been watered down severely. Being a disciple of Jesus should be the goal of every single person that goes into a relationship with God, with Christ. Our baptism says that we will do this. Period. We don't have to be baptized, but that is what our baptism tells us, that we will become a follower of this Jesus. We may come here as Christians or non-Christians, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter whatsoever. But we are expected to get on the road to be a follower of Jesus, a different trail. And that road is a lifelong journey. If you go and visit Opal Bowden today, 105 years old, she will look you in the eye and say that she is not close to being the person she needs to be. But she's trying. And she's only had 100 years to work on it. The lifelong journey we're on consists of a journey where we are studying Scripture every single week, trying to understand what it is that God is like. We are opening ourselves up to one another and to God in worship to see where it is that God is leading us and to give our thanks and all of ourselves to God. We are meditating on God every single day, even if it's a simple text message. I don't know why people won't take those. Just a text message that interrupts your moment of that day and says, you know what? Here I am, I'm God. But it also includes your family, your church family, to become a part of your real family. That's the journey we're on. And in my mind, that is how we convert from being a Christian to being a follower of Jesus. Blessed are those who are pure in heart, for they will see God. What do you see? Reflect on these words.